Thanks, Jessica, and thanks, Andrea. And thank you, everyone who's here. I was so looking forward to meeting in person back in the good old days. And I'm sorry that couldn't happen, but I really appreciate Jessica's tenacity in making sure that we did get to meet virtually. So I'm very excited. So I'm happy to read from Kitchen Yarns. And, I thought about what was the best thing to read. And as you know, if you've read the book, there are some joyous essays and some sad ones and some hopeful ones and some that cover probably all of those emotions. But because you're in Massachusetts, I decided to read Confessions of a Marcia Jordan Girl about the Jordan Marsh blueberry muffins. And so, as you know, the book is structured very loosely chronologically. Um, and that's because many of the essays sort of overlap with time. And so I had to really work hard to make it seem or give the illusion of chronology. So this one comes kind of early in the book. And I don't think I need to say more, except every time I read this, and I do have some blueberries in my fridge, I immediately want to make the blueberry muffins. So let me read it. And if you remember Jordan Marsh, I hope this brings back some warm memories for all of you. When blueberries are in season and I am feeling nostalgic for my younger days, I dig out a purple stained recipe from my recipe box and begin to bake blueberry muffins. Although the ingredients do not seem magical, combined in a certain way with enough blueberries to turn the batter a pale purple and topped with a heavy sprinkling of sugar, these muffins transport me back in time. As they bake, if I close my eyes, I can go back to when I was Anne Marie, not Anne. I can picture a happy half dozen muffins snuggled into a white bakery box, the lid open, and me trying to choose the blueberriest one of them all. It is a long ago Sunday afternoon, and our house is filled with relatives, some who show up every Sunday, and some who drift in and out over the years. My Italian grandmother, Mama Rose, is hoisting a pan of lasagna from the oven, trimming fennel to serve with a dish of oil for dipping, stirring a pot of red sauce, we called it gravy, and making coffee seemingly all at the same time, moving around our tiny kitchen as if she's in a well choreographed ballet. That coffee was made right on the stove with eggshells added to the grounds to cut the bitterness. In the kitchen, the relatives ate Auntie Etta's small round cookies, fried and covered in honey, then topped with colored sprinkles, delicate butter cookies shaped like reeds and seashells, and her daffodil cake, an angel food cake with egg yolks stirred in at the right time to create the shape of daffodils in bloom when you cut it. The muffins came from the Jordan Marsh Bakery, all the way in Boston. I had never been to Boston, never been to Jordan Marsh. It loomed large and sparkling in my imagination. I imagined it looked like a palace, its floors filled with dazzling mirrors and fancy women spritzing perfume at customers as they passed. Oh, we had department stores in Rhode Island, sure, but none that produced muffins the size of tennis balls. The only competition for Jordan Marsh was its rival store, Filene's. My birthday, December 9th, came the day before my godmother's birthday. Auntie Ellen was a romantic heroine, tall and blonde, with her makeup always perfect and her hair always flipped just so. She had no children of her own, and this gave her an air of tragedy, but also added to her mystery. Auntie Ellen never had to run off to pick up anyone, never smelled of applesauce or baby like the other aunts, who were all mothers. Unlike them, she had time to go all the way to Boston to shop at Filene's and Jordan Marsh. She bought my birthday presents there, delivering them in their store wrapping paper and tied with a perfect red bow. One year, I opened the box to find a brown suede bracelet with a gold rectangle in the center. In that rectangle, in the fanciest script I had ever seen, my own name, Anne Marie. The Warwick Mall in Rhode Island opened about 2 miles from my house in 1970 when I was 13 years old. At one end, Filene's. At the other, Jordan Marsh. The arrival of these two department stores heralded an opportunity to buy the clothes and makeup I drooled over every month in 17 magazine. It meant that even for a girl like me, someone who sat and stared out the window, dreaming of a vague but glamorous future, sophistication was really within my grasp. The stores were exactly as I'd hoped. They dazzled and enchanted me with their displays. Cosmetic counters filled the entire first floor. The air smelled of Chanel and Shalimar. When I walked into either department store, I became someone new. They held the future, I thought, my future. One afternoon, as I stepped into Jordan Marsh from the mall entrance, a woman called to me. She had the best posture I'd ever seen, and she sat at a makeshift desk. Her smile stretched brightly across her face. Have you ever considered modeling? She asked me. Yes, I said without hesitating. I had considered any occupation I thought would throw me headfirst into a glamorous life. Model, cruise ship hostess, airline stewardess. We're putting together a fashion board of 8 girls, she explained. Marcia Jordan girls, she added. Before she could continue, I was filling out the application. Do you know what you're going to wear on the first day of school? She asked me. Did I know? I'd made a chart of all my outfits all the way through October. Hot pink hot pants with a matching maxi vest and a pink flowered shirt, I said. Hot pants with a maxi vest, she said, impressed. She made a note and told me that 16 girls would be called for the final interview. By the time I got home, Jordan Marsh had already called. I was one of the 16 finalists. In an afternoon, I'd gone from a regular girl with oversized dreams to an almost Marcia Jordan girl. A week later, I was in the upper floor conference room of the store, eating brownie sundaes with executives and answering questions about everything from what makeup I liked, Bonnie Bell, to my favorite novel, Marjorie Morningstar. Every Jordan Marsh store in New England had Marcia Jordan girls, high school girls who were models in fashion shows and at mother-daughter teas, who did tests and surveys about fashions in the malls and in their schools, whose pictures hung on spinning cubes in the junior clothing department. By the time I left that interview, I knew I had to be a Marcia Jordan girl. I had to. I was told they'd call by 5:30, but 5:30 came and went and no one called. At 6, I was hysterical. I begged Mama Rose to pray to Saint Anthony, her patron saint. Puzzled by what exactly to pray for, she nonetheless set to work in front of his statue in our living room. My mother ordered me outside. I was making her nervous. When the phone rang at 6:15, I was too nervous to answer it, but my father did. I heard his slow southern drawl and then, Anne, it's someone from Marcia Jordan calling for you, from Jordan Marsh calling for you. I grabbed that phone from his hand and said hello to my future. The 7 other Marcia Jordan girls and I were given uniforms, gray and white striped pants and jacket, a cranberry blouse with white cuffs and collar. We traveled on our own by bus to the flagship store on Washington Street in Boston for fittings and fashion shows. We ate chicken Devon crepes at the Magic Pan and salads with sticky buns at the English Tea Room on Newbury Street. We hailed cabs and walked across the Boston Common, a gaggle of long-haired, long-legged 16-year-olds. At home in the store, we stood on pedestals, mannequin modeling. We dated college boys who worked at the store for their summer jobs. We got first kisses in Fiats and Mustangs in the parking lot. On one night in December, the store closed for men's night, and only men were allowed to come in. They shopped for their wives and girlfriends while we walked around the store in a revolving array of clothes. Bonnie Bell sent us makeup to try and cartons of 1006 lotion to tackle our pimples. I wanted my days as a Marcia Jordan girl with those summers of long kisses and hours of fittings and runway shows to go on and on. But like all things, those days eventually ended. And soon I was off to college, where I traded in that gray and white pinstriped uniform for one of khaki pants and Izod shirts. I still went to Jordan Marsh when I wanted to buy something special. Christmas gifts for my mom, beautiful housewares as friends got married, splurges for myself. And then I traded in my preppy uniform for the Ralph Lauren designed TWA flight attendant uniform. On layovers, I rode the escalators in department stores in Paris and London. Harrods was bigger, Bendel's more chic, Nordstrom grander, but none of them compared to my first love those early visions of glamour and sophistication that anchored the Warwick Mall back home. Both Filene's and Jordan Marsh are gone now. At the mall, Macy's and Target have taken their places. Like my childhood dreams, they have faded somewhat in my memory. But when I bake those muffins from a recipe straight from the Jordan Marsh bakery, when I pull them from the oven, warm and sparkling with sugar, I can almost go back there. I close my eyes and take a bite, and a rush of images passes through me. My mother testing a new shade of red lipstick, my friends and me buying 45s of Three Dog Night and Simon and Garfunkel in the Jordan Marsh record department. I am giggling with my friend Beth. I am opening a slender box and finding a brown suede bracelet with my name engraved on a gold plate. Anne Marie. The muffins are sweet. Their taste lingers for a long moment before it is gone.
Thank you for that. I think that's a chapter that many people can relate to. And my book group mentions the Jordan Marsh blueberry muffins frequently.
Well,
So
as you know, the recipe is in the book, so you can make this.
That was very exciting when we realized the actual recipe was in the book.
Yeah.
Have you been making the muffins during the pandemic? Is that sort of a comfort food for you?
Yeah. I mean, as we all know, we've been for what, 8 months or something in big comfort food zone. And those muffins are definitely one of my go-tos. Yeah.
Do you have any new favorite comfort foods that you've tried during the pandemic or?
Well, that's interesting. I think we've really relied on the ones that, that are surefire. I made a lot of, as I say in the essay, but I'm Italian American. My mom passed away a couple of years ago. And so it's the first time, after she died was the first time that I had to make the meatballs and the spaghetti sauce. And I've definitely got the spaghetti sauce down. So I've been making lots of it, and I put it in big, mason jars and send it to my aunt, who I can't see because she's 86 and can't have visitors. But I get her jars of it and send it to my son in New York. So that's, we're just going to the ones that we know are surefire comfort.
The tried and trues?
Yeah, yep, definitely.
Is there a particular thing or food or restaurant that you've missed the most during the pandemic? Like something you just can't wait to get your hands on?
There's two, actually, absolutely. So I live in Providence, Rhode Island, but we live half-time in New York City. And I have not been back to New York since the day we left on March 12th, thinking we'd be back in a few weeks. So our apartment has been empty. My husband's gone back to clean out the fridge and unplug stuff, after it was safe to travel. But we have two places that we go to there that I just miss beyond belief. One is a restaurant called Barbudos. It's actually where we had our wedding. And they just make, it sounds crazy, but here we go back to the comfort food, right? They make the best roast chicken and the best, these potatoes and a kale salad. And, but it was also just being there where, sort of like Cheers, everyone knows your name. And, so I really miss Barbudos, and I really miss our favorite Chinese restaurant because probably if you're in or around Boston, you maybe can get some good Chinese food. Providence, not so much.
Yeah.
And so we had a great Chinese place called Hawaii Yuan in Chinatown. And in fact, when my husband went back to check on the apartment or unplug something or whatever, I actually had him pick up food and bring it back to us because we needed our Hawaii Yuan fix. So those are the two I'm missing a lot. The restaurants in Providence, we've been able to get takeout, the ones we love. And we're so happy that we can still eat their good food.
Right. Okay, here's a fill in the blank for you. When I run out of blank, I panic.
Pasta. I don't even have to think about it. I have 6 kinds of pasta in my fridge. I guess the second would be coffee, but I've actually started getting my coffee delivered So I know I have it coming because, as you all know, back in March and April and May, it was hard to get some stuff.
Mhm.
And
It was hard
so
to get pasta.
it was hard. And I noticed, and maybe this is a sign, it's hard again. I went to buy some today and Whole Foods
Oh.
almost empty, that whole aisle. So I bought a lot. But I signed up for like a coffee delivery service. So I've been good with that. That's why I think pasta is probably first.
Well, now that you've said that, I'm sure everyone who's attending this webinar will be running to the store to make sure they get some pasta over the
Check out the
weekend.
pasta shelves, guys, if they're getting
'Cause
low.
who knows what's going to happen.
Oh.
So as far as kitchen yarns go, what was sort of the genesis of this particular project? Were you looking to do something that had to do with food, or, it just popped into your head one day, or how did that come about?
It's a great question and kind of a funny story because no, I had never thought about a book like this. And my editor and agent invited me to lunch. And although, when we're not in a pandemic, I typically see them for lunch. I usually see them separately just because my editor has things to talk about, or my agent does, or we just want to hang out together or go to dinner. So when they both invite you, you always know something's up. And you don't always know it's good. So they invited me to like one of these clubs, in to one of the, I have 2 cats and they're getting
Okay.
eating pizza, so they just knocked them
I don't
over.
hear any yelling, so I guess it's okay.
It's okay, they're just knocking stuff over. One will walk in front of me at some point, I'm sure. So they invited me to lunch at one of these, kind of, like the Harvard Club, but it wasn't. And, where you get like a Cobb salad. And my editor said, so we're really thinking, you could write a book with all your food writing. And I was like, food writing? I thought it was ridiculous. I was like, I don't write about food. And I said that. And she said, well, you just won your 2nd Best American Food Writing Award. And so we think you do write about food. That kind of stopped me because, these awards, you don't really get anything, so it's not like, oh, I have this big badge or, trophy or something. And they happened a few years apart. But when she said that, I was like, that's interesting. I have one too. And so she said, if you wrote a book about food with recipes, I would give you a contract tomorrow. And to a writer, that is like music to your ears. Like, you work so hard on getting contracts and getting your proposals. And here she was saying, I'm ready tomorrow. So I went home and I start just looking through my essays, and I surprised myself when I realized, not that I had ever sat down and said, I'm going to write an essay about food, but that I had used food quite often as a way to enter difficult topics. And I saw that she was right. I had 1, 2 of these Best American Food Writing things, but I had 8 or 10 other essays. And so I printed them out and I looked at them and I told my agent, I can do this. And they were delighted. And true to her word, the next day I had a contract to do it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I know. And with recipes, that was the hardest part. But I also realized, I wrote them sort of not intentionally. And so suddenly, if I'm going to put them together to be a loose kind of memoir, I had to fill in some blanks and catch people up to how my life had changed and what was new. And so it took me, maybe another year to do all of that. But it was really a labor of love and quite a fun project.
Did it feel like, sort of a summing up of, your life with respect to your family and the role that food has played in your family? You're sort of kind of looking back over the years there.
I think it was like, when you take your glasses off and you put on your sunglasses, it was just like looking through a different lens. So it wasn't really a summing up so much, or it wasn't cathartic. It was just looking at my life with the lens of food and realizing how important it was, and entertaining and meaningful, really.
When we discussed this in our cookbook group, many of the group members commented on how much they enjoyed reading about Mama Rose. So I wondered if you could talk a little bit maybe about your relationship with her, and not just even cooking, but just to get a sense of her role in your life and what she was like as a person.
Yeah, happily. So my dad was like a career Navy guy, and we moved around a lot until I was 7. And then he was based in Cuba, in Guantanamo Bay, actually, and
Mhm.
families obviously couldn't join him. So we went allegedly temporarily to live with my grandmother in the house where my mother and her 9 siblings were actually born in that house, and they were all raised there. A little house, 1 bathroom.
Oh,
Yeah, 3 bedrooms, which sounds normal and like, yeah, we all, 3 bedrooms, but teeny, teeny, teeny.
mm,
1 bedroom where her 3 brothers slept. Honestly, it's the size of like a walk-in closet.
oh my gosh.
And then my great grandmother was still in the biggest bedroom.
Okay.
My parents were in the next bedroom. Downstairs, my grandmother slept in what ultimately became like a TV room, but there was
Mhm.
another bedroom off the kitchen. There was a couch in the kitchen where my youngest aunt had slept. I mean, there were just people coming everywhere,
Everywhere.
everywhere. My grandmother was from Southern Italy. She was about 4'11".
Of course.
Yeah, red hair and green eyes. And I mean, red hair naturally, not like that
Ah,
talk, very light skin. Her mother, who I also lived with, my great grandmother, was about 5'10" and blonde and blue eyes. So that this odd Nordic sort of looking part
yeah.
of the family, right? But Mama Rose had been the most beautiful girl in town. And when she was 16, she was in an arranged marriage with a man who was 17 years older. And she didn't want that marriage. And I think from the day she was 16 until the day she died, she was pretty miserable. She
Oh,
was crabby as can be. She was not like, look up the word Italian grandmother and you get, in the dictionary. No, she was the opposite. She was always cranky. She didn't want people to bother her. She never taught anyone how to make all of her delicious food. And we had kind of acrimonious is too strong, but I would bug her because I loved stories even as a kid.
mm,
So I would always be like, why'd you get married so young? Why'd you
mm.
have 10 kids? What do you think about this? What do you And she would just be like, you're giving me a headache, and she had she spoke in broken English. She had been
Yeah.
born in Italy. She was a presence. Her children, all 10 of them adored her. And so our house had all of them all the time for meals. Um, it was like living in an opera, and boy, do I miss it. Yeah, as much as I would go up to my room and like put a pillow on my head
Yeah.
just to be quiet, I'd give anything for one of those Sundays.
Yeah. I think that's often the case with
Yeah,
situations like that. You love them and sometimes detest them in equal measure.
totally. You said that beautifully. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So the essay that you read about the blueberry muffins, one of the questions that appeared in the chat was from a listener who wanted to know how on earth you were able to get away with wearing hot pink hot pants to school.
Good question. So when I was in 7th grade, the school board or whomever, I don't know, lifted the ban on just regular pants. So we could wear
Mhm.
pants. Before that, we had to wear skirts or dresses. 7th through 9th grade, we had a hemline uh, restriction. And so when we showed up for school, if the teacher thought our skirt was too short, we had to stand on a desk and they would pull out a measuring tape and we would be measured. You'd be sent home if it was X amount of inches above your knee. So that was 7th through 9th grade.
Wait, is
But
this a
by
public school?
public school, yeah, public school in Rhode Island. But by 10th grade, things had loosened more. And I think like many kids in 1972, I was just always trying to push the limits. I
Mhm.
was a good kid. I never got in trouble, but we were like, stop the Vietnam War. And just, I mean, we were young and we weren't doing anything meaningful really, but I was always outspoken about social issues. And I just thought, girls should be able to wear whatever we want. So I didn't get sent home for the hot pants.
That's kind of
Have to
amazing.
imagine it is the weirdest outfit. I can still picture pink. So the hot pants, and it's sort of like a stretchy material, like I
Yeah,
don't know what, but this vest that zipped from the waistline of the shorts came down to my mid calf. So it
I
was hot.
remember those.
Remember that? But so it was hot pants, but you were kind of covered up,
Right,
you know?
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember that, the super long vest, and it was always like flapping all over the place.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. What shoes do you wear? I remember going, what do I wear with it? It was a funny, weird outfit, but so many things were then. So
Wait, what shoes did you wear with that outfit?
I don't remember. I wish I could. I remember that the blouse was, we used to call it like pucker, like it was like puckered.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
there was a name for it that I'm not remembering, but it had like a kind of a big collar and it was like pink and orange and maybe blue. Oh my gosh. I wish I had a picture. Horrible.
That was my next question, if you had a picture of it.
Not of that. I wish I did.
I also have a question about one of the recipes. In one of the essays, you talk about Indiana fried chicken,
Mhm.
and you talk about using lots of salt and pepper. Could you give everybody an idea? Like lots could mean a lot of things.
I actually wish my husband was here because he stepped outside so that I could have privacy doing this. But okay, so let me just give you a little background. Indiana fried chicken is actually kind of famous, though most people don't know about it. So how can it be famous? But it is. There's even a fried chicken trail that you can do in southern Indiana. And so my husband is a writer as well, and he writes about cooking and food and chefs. And he always thought his fried chicken was the best. And so like it was, even if you follow Food 52 at all, his fried chicken was a genius recipe. And I ate it, and my mother ate it, and my daughter ate it, and we're like, it's not as good as
Meh.
Indian fried chicken. Yeah. So for Valentine's Day a year or two ago, maybe 2 years ago, I bought him a ticket to Greensburg, Indiana, where my dad was from. And we ate at 5 fried chicken places.
Oh my
My
God.
daughter and I took him. And one bite in, he was like, this is the best fried chicken I've ever had. So he wrote an article for the New York Times. So you guys can Google this
Okay.
about Indiana fried chicken. His name is Michael Ruhlman, Ruhlman. But when he wrote that, Food and Wine magazine wrote to me and said, I want to hear your version of the fried chicken.
Right.
So I wrote about it for Food and Wine. They developed the recipe, and so there are measurements in there. No one ever measured in my family. This was
Right.
one of the chores of this, but I am telling you, there is a lot of black pepper in this fried chicken. In some of the places, and I know you're saying, what's a lot? I don't know how much chicken we're talking about. If he comes back, I'll ask him how much. But in some of the places, the chicken actually, as crispy as it was, actually had like sort of a grayish tinge from the black pepper. So it's that much.
That's a lot of black
It's a
pepper.
little bit of a kick. But I have to tell you, someday we'll fly again, and you all
Right.
can fly to Cincinnati, rent a car, and drive 45 minutes to Greensburg, Indiana, and eat the best fried chicken of your life.
Oh, that is Southern Indiana then.
Yeah, it sure is. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate the reference. People can check in the New York Times and see if we can figure out what a lot of salt
Yeah,
and
and Food
pepper
and Wine from me. So between the two of them, you'll get it.
is. Our book group also, 1 month, we read, or reread, I should say, the Silver Palette Cookbook.
Oh, yay.
You talk about in one of your chapters that has to do with chicken marbella, which has got to be one of the most famous recipes of the last 40 years.
Definitely.
And I was wondering if you still use that book.
Oh, I use it all the time. First of all, I make chicken marbella frequently.
Mm.
Well, frequently, it's one of my go-to things, especially if, again, pre-pandemic, we have a book club, and that's the perfect thing to make.
Mhm.
Everybody loves it. So I make that a lot. There's a recipe in there. So, and there are 2 books. And so maybe I'm combining them, forgive me for that. But I make their sesame chicken, which is amazing. I make their lemon chicken. But they have a recipe for It's like a chili with chicken, but you put chocolate in it. Does anybody, I don't know if anybody remembers that or has made that.
Oh,
I love
maybe.
it. And then they're cold sesame noodles. Like it's got a peanut butter, soy
Mm.
sauce, maybe chili oil, sesame oil, sauce with like asparagus in it that I make a lot in summer. I use it all the time.
All right, good to know.
Everyone should be cooking from that. I think it's great. You know, it's sort of like, it reminds me in a way of like the Barefoot Contessa. It's that kind of foolproof, good food, not complicated. You don't have to buy like a lot of weird ingredient. You know, you can make the stuff, you know.
It's interesting that both of those books or both of those authors came out of having had gourmet shops.
That's funny. That's right. Yeah. So maybe that's the way to go.
That can be your next career.
Oh, geez.
Um, I guess I think for a lot of people, they're curious about the writing process. I mean, for a lot of us, it seems like, how on earth do you, figure out how to sit down and write a book? So I guess one of my questions about that is, the writing process, and is it different for different types of books?
Mm. No, the process isn't different really. It's different for different writers. As I said, my husband's a writer
Mhm.
and he sits down at the computer, even if he doesn't have a project or I don't know what. Tonight I said to him, "What were you doing? I mean, you're not working on anything," but he needs to sit there and do that. Um, I like to take at least 2 hours a day to work on my writing, but that does not always mean actually writing. It might be researching something.
Mhm.
It might be revising something. It might be just tinkering. And I know 2 hours sounds like you don't have a lot of productivity if you're only working 2 hours a day, but I mean, at least 2 hours. Um, you know, for me, I can't imagine how someone gets excited by making balance sheets balance or, making cars run or all the things that everyone does. I don't understand how they do them. For me, if I didn't write, I couldn't, it's like breathing to me. It's like,
Mhm.
I have stories in my head. I have ideas in my head all the time and I can't wait. I say to put them on paper, although I write on a computer, but I can't wait to put them down and kind of make them come to life. So for me, it's like whatever everyone else's job is or passion is,
Mm.
I just have to do it. So I don't even think about it.
So things are just sort of percolating and eventually something comes to the surface.
Yeah, yeah, sort of. Yeah, I describe it like, sort of like a volcano and everything's like bubbling and bubbling. And then there comes this day where I'm like, if I don't get this down, I'm going to blow, the top of my head's going to blow. And so I can get the volcano sort of in control. Um, when I write novels, it's 2 to 5 years. So it's a big commitment. A book is a big commitment.
Do
And
you
so
have more than one project going at any given point in time?
sort of, typically I have one thing that I'm actually passionate about and writing, but it reaches a point where it has to go to my agent and my editor and people to get comments and revisions. And so the process sort of slows down and then I might work on something else, but I don't actually do two at the same time.
Right.
And my husband just came in. How much salt and pepper in the Indiana fried chicken? Love.
I have the actual measurements in the recipe there.
Yeah.
They just do it by sight.
They only do it by, but it's a lot.
It's plenty.
It's plenty.
aggressive.
It's aggressive.
aggressive.
We're not giving, I said kind of the same thing, but okay.
We'll just have to experiment.
Yeah, more than you think.
So there's a couple of questions in the chat about writing, and one is, what's the best piece of writing advice that you received and that you still use to this day?
So I didn't study writing, so I didn't have some wise mentor who was able to help me or, I got out of college and I worked as a flight attendant for 8 years. And I got a master's in American literature from NYU, and I took some writing workshops. So I didn't really have that voice. Anything I learned or any advice I got, I kind of gleaned from reading. What I tell young or new writers is make sure you read everything. I feel like everything I learned about writing, I learned from reading, and I read a lot. I feel like it's my job, but it's also one of my other passion. And so I can read a book and learn, oh, this, in fact, I'll tell you just a quick story. When I was writing my first novel somewhere off the coast of Maine, I wrote it as short stories and was convinced by a writer and an agent and an editor to turn it into a novel. But I didn't know how to do that. I thought I can write 12 pages or 15, but I don't know about 250 or 300. And so so I had a contract for a novel, and, you know, they paid me money for it. And I could not make this thing work as a novel as being a reader, you know, you understand this isn't working. And I decided one day I can't do it. You know, I'm going to have to give that money back, which of course I had spent. I have to give that money back. And I thought I'd be a writer, and it's done, you know. And so I took a walk from my apartment on Bleecker Street in Greenwich Village to Soho, to the Spring Street bookstore. And I walked in and I just looked at all the books and I just plucked one off the shelf. I bought it, went home. I mean, I'm depressed. I get back in bed and I read the book straight through. And that book was Dinner at the Homesick Restaurant by Ann Tyler. I finished it. I ate some food. I went to sleep. I woke up in the morning. I was like, I can make this a novel. And I fixed it that day. I found out years later she had written that as connected short stories. So by reading, I understood something she had done mechanically that I can't tell you now, or I couldn't tell you then. It clicked. And so I think writers just need to read. That's how we learn how to do what we do.
And someone else asks about different genres of writing, because you've obviously written in different genres. Yeah. And they're asking if the plots undergo different processes, which is sort of like, I guess, do you have to approach it in a different way if it's in a different genre?
I say absolutely not. And I don't know, maybe I'm giving you bad advice. For me, I just want to tell a good story. So when I wrote my first YA novel, I didn't write it as a YA novel. I thought I had written an adult novella. It was shorter. And the protagonist was like a 14-year-old girl. But we all know we read like To Kill a Mockingbird as a little, you know, as a young girl. And I sent it to my agent and she was so excited. She called me and she said, finally, you've written a YA book. You know, you have such a good voice for teen. I said, I have. So I wrote it exactly as I would have written any book. And now I've written several other young adult books or middle reader books and nonfiction. And your goal is just to tell a good story. Don't think about the audience so much.
I think that, you know, when reading memoirs, a lot of people think, oh, you know, especially this type of memoir, because it seems like connected essays, people are like, oh, you know, that's a kind of writing that I think I could do, you know, because it's something short and you're talking about something that's extremely familiar. So I'm wondering if you could give our audience a few tips on memoir writing.
Okay. So it's interesting. I work sometimes with private students, and I've been working with one for a few years, and she has quite a story to tell. And I had to write her a very hard note today, a very hard letter, because she's not being truthful about something. And I don't really know that, but I do know it because there's just a big hole in something, a part of it. And I said, if you don't talk about this, no one's going to buy it. And it's a good book and it's a good story. However, I said, I also understand that you may not want to expose yourself or your family. So I think the number one thing with memoir writing is you have to be honest. You have to remember that you never write for revenge, because as much as we love a revenge story, you know, we think we do, in memoir, we don't. We want redemption stories. We want to know that that person could stop drinking, that person could forgive her mother, that person could help her father when he was dying, even if he was a terrible father. That person could make up with the children she had, neglected. We want redemption stories in memoir. So you don't want revenge. You have to be honest, and always remember that nobody in fiction or memoir is completely villainous or completely heroic, especially the writer.
And I think memoir also appeals because there's usually a lot of emotion involved in it. And one of the questions was, how is it that you get that emotion onto the page?
I like what the writer Deborah Gwartney says. She's a memoirist. She said, when you're writing about something hot, write it cold. And by that, she means don't give into sentimentality. Don't tell the reader what to feel.
Mm.
Here she comes. I told her to be a cat soon. That's what,
Oh, yeah.
Don't give into sentimentality. Don't tell the reader what to feel. Don't say, this was the saddest thing that ever happened to anybody. She was the best mother who ever lived. These superlatives. It's actually just almost like reporting the story is how you get to the emotion. It seems counterintuitive, but that's actually true.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And maybe you can, we're all kind of circling back to the pandemic. Have you discovered any new authors or, novels? Are you reading any cookbooks, memoirs yourself, or just anything?
Okay, so probably like a lot of you, I am reading so much because isn't it great to escape and be in a different time? So my favorite book that I've read in the past few weeks is called Shuggie Bain, and I just saw that it won the Booker Prize. It's by, is it Douglas Stewart? Douglas Stewart, first novel, takes place in gritty Glasgow, Scotland in the 80s. It was published in February. It got completely neglected because we all know what happened in March. And then was rediscovered somehow. I have to tell you, every sentence is fabulous. You're laughing and you're crying. It is a teenage protagonist and his mother. Everybody has to go read Shuggie Bain. I also really love these British writers that wrote in the 50s. One is named Elizabeth Taylor, not the actress. Hotel Claremont, is that it? I'm always asking my husband because I can never remember. Hotel Claremont, is that the Elizabeth Taylor one that I love? Yeah, Hotel Claremont. And then Jane Elizabeth Howard has this 4-part series. You want to lose yourself for a month? You read these 4 books. They're
That's
fabulous.
The way to go.
So, yeah. Those have been my favorite things to indulge in.
Do you read cookbooks?
I love cookbooks. I love them. I don't know if I'd say I read them. I'm like a cookbook flipper.
Or yes,
like
explore them.
You know what I? Yeah. You open them up and you look, and I love the pictures and I love the descriptions about the recipes. So yeah, I love cookbooks.
Do you have one that you've recently read that you were just, dying to cook everything from?
I can't say that I have. I have the great blessing of living with someone who writes cookbooks. And so he does, his last book is from scratch. And he also just wrote the new French laundry cookbook. And so we have, he does a good job in keeping me happy with cookbook stuff.
And somebody asks if you've been knitting lately.
Oh boy, I have. Okay, this is funny. Something happened during this pandemic. Typically, I like more with knitting, more like instant gratification. So I'll do a cowl that's kind of quick, or like big needles and make a big scarf and hats. Like I like all that. I have knit 4 sweaters. I've been totally into more complicated projects. And I just look forward in the afternoon to sitting with the pattern. I almost called it a recipe, with the pattern and the yarn and having to really think what's next and how do I do it? And sometimes having to go to YouTube or call my friend who taught me to knit. I still go to her for help and these harder things. So it's just interesting. I've knit completely different stuff.
Huh. It's a good way to occupy your brain, to like have something you completely focus on.
Yeah. You look up and it's an hour and a half later and you have half a sleeve. You haven't really done that much. Hey.
So touching on, next week's holiday, someone's asking, how will your Thanksgiving be different or the same this year?
Oh my gosh, that is the $60,000 question. So my son was born in 1993. And the year he was born, I was living in a small 1.5 bedroom apartment with just the two of us. And my cousin, who was constantly over helping me with the baby, he was born in April. And our parents were doing Thanksgivings for the past few years, just, my immediate family, her immediate family. And the year before, her immediate family there were only 3 of them there. Her siblings were away and they had like a chicken. And so we said, this has got to stop. And because he was like the first grandchild, we said we can get them here. So we had about 14 people, aunts and uncles and our parents, cousins, about 14 people in this kind of tiny kitchen. And that began, so since 1993, she and I have done Thanksgiving at my house or wherever I've lived. We've had as many as 40.
Wow.
Typically have between 25 and 30. The night before, we have different people, as many as 30 or 40. So it's 2 days of like just, bacchanalia. And so this year, there are 8 of us, and we're doing it on my roof, no matter what the temperature is. I have like a roof patio. I live in a loft, like an old factory. And socially distanced. We're still trying to figure out how to divvy up the food up there, and it'll probably be just a couple hours. So it's gonna be very different, but as different as it's gonna be, I am just so thankful that we have been safe this year, that my family's managed to stay safe, that those of us, very small group, can still be together. I don't want to be corny, but I think we have a heck of a lot to be thankful for still, as always.
Will you cook anything different because of your numbers, or do you even do most of the traditional things?
I would say this is funny. So we've been asking, the few people who are going to be there, what's the thing you absolutely, think of with Thanksgiving? We want to make sure everybody's happy.
A must-have.
Yeah. And my daughter says, she's 16, she says, oh, the ham. And I was like, the ham? It's Thanksgiving. But because we have so many people the night before, we always have a ham.
Right.
And I put it out on Thanksgiving, but it's not what I actually think of with Thanksgiving. So I thought that was kind of funny. So I guess, I don't know if we're going to have the ham or not, but we're going very basic, just turkey, mashed potatoes, gravy. One cousin today called to say she wants to make these Brussels sprouts she makes, and we'll have stuffing or dressing. And my other cousin wants to make some kind of spicy mapley yam thing. I think you've probably heard the whole menu. It's going to be, little hors d'oeuvres so we can sit and have a cocktail at our separate tables, and it's going to be different.
Do you have a killer turkey secret?
I have to tell you that for many of these years, so how many, I said we started in 93. So for 26 years, we went through so many. We used to do themes, Mexican, Mediterranean, Southern, and we'd have all the side dishes match the theme. That went by the wayside about 10 years ago. But for many years, we brined our turkey according to the Alice Waters from Chez Pascal, her brine, which the New York Times ran. What did I say?
Chez Pascal.
I said Chez Panisse, thank you. From Chez Panisse. The New York Times ran that brine recipe a long time ago, and we did it. And one year we kind of looked at each other and we're like, oh, we don't have the star anise. And it called for a lot of kind of funny things. And we're like, we're not going to brine it. And then everybody was like, this is the best turkey ever. So we're like, wait a minute. I don't know if anyone knows the difference. So we've returned to like just the basic, the way your mom did it. It's the best turkey. You baste it, I love turkey. Some people don't like it. I've heard so many people say turkey is so boring. And I was like,
Yeah.
what? I love it. But
Yeah, I love turkey, and I think what I really love is that you can do a lot of things with it the next day.
yes, yes. So turkey pot pie, I love because every year it tastes different because I put whatever's left over.
Mhm.
Sometimes there's green beans and sometimes there's corn and whatever. So with the gravy, I love a turkey pot pie. And I really love making turkey tetrazzini, that old fashioned,
Oh, really?
yeah, with mushrooms and I love that. That's just a taste that I didn't grow up with that, but that's just a fun thing to make too.
Yeah, I didn't really either, but definitely I feel like turkey sandwich is
Oh.
mandatory in some way.
Totally. So it's mandatory in the house. The morning after Thanksgiving, breakfast is turkey sandwiches. The leftover little buns, with the powdered
Yeah.
what do they call? I don't even know what they're called. And you put it on with the cranberry sauce and the mayonnaise and some turkey. Fabulous.
What about pie? Do you do pie?
So I'm not a big dessert person. I really don't like pumpkin pie, so I'm sorry to fans of pumpkin pie. I always say it's because when I was like 8 or 9, I got sick on Thanksgiving and the pumpkin pie was the last thing I ate. And we all know how that goes. You maybe can never eat that
Yes.
thing again.
Can't touch it again.
I don't like the texture. I don't like pumpkin pie. I really like pecan pie. And my son is a good baker, so he usually does a pecan pie and pumpkin squares, kind of like brownies, but they're pumpkin with cream cheese frosting.
Oh, that
It's a
sounds good.
Magnolia Bakery cookbook.
Oh, that is a good bakery. I have not read that book,
That's a good one.
but
There's a
maybe I
lot-
should.
Yeah, you should. Before Thanksgiving, you want to make these pumpkin bars or squares. They're really good. This year, I'm going to do in muffin tins, little mini pies.
Oh, cute.
Because we have these different tables and you're not supposed to have like a buffet or share like a big
Right.
cake. So I'm going to do apple, pecan, and some kind of pumpkin-y thing.
That sounds, that is pie. That sounds like pie.
Yep.
I think we are about out of time. And I think I've gotten to most of the questions that are here. Jessica, would you like to help us wrap up a little bit?
I just want to thank Anne so much for her time tonight. We had lots of great comments and it was just such a treat to have you come online with us and take this time to help us wrap up our One Book Chelmsford year. And we really appreciate it. And thank you to W.W. Norton and the Friends of the Library as well for making this possible. What a wonderful conversation that was. We have a recording of it that we'll send to anyone who has registered for the program, and also Anne, you too. But yes, wow, what a treat. I was so enchanted by all your stories.
Thank you so much for
Thank you
reading
so
the book
much.
and for having me. Andrea, it was so fun talking to you. Thank you.
I enjoyed it so much. I'm so glad that we were able to finally do this.
Yeah, me too. And thank you, Jessica, for making it happen. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thank you. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
You
On the
too,
road.
everyone. Stay
you.
safe and
You
enjoy
too.
Thanksgiving.
All right, take
Bye-bye.
care.
Bye, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.